Campfire this week. I'm sorry, as you can tell, it is ThatPhageGuy hosting rather than Ames, therefore all the mistakes are my fault. We're joined here today by Suaixtix, Callisto, and Kinderparty with Lurkaderp as my co-host. We're here to talk about the transition from Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter 5. You may know some of our guests from their other work in the Street Fighter and fighting game community. Suri is known for her work with One Frame Links, so she's one of the brains behind all the fight stats that you guys see popping up on stream. Callisto is known for his work behind the scenes in production, in particular the infamous fire alarm incident of Frosty Faustings. And Kinderparty is known for both regularly bodying Callisto and friendlies, as well as his enduring love of Marvel. I understand it still lives. So, lady and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Before we dive into the subject matter at hand, which is, of course, the transition from Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter 5, one of the traditions here at the Campfire is to get a bit of background information. How did you guys all get into the scene? So we'll start up top with you, Sui. Tell us about how you got into fighting games.
Yeah, so I've always been into video games. I played Smash a lot and casuals with my friends. Never really played a lot of fighting games until last year, early 2015. A friend got me started playing Injustice because I liked it since it was comic book characters battling each other to the bitter end. From there, I kind of got into Street Fighter, and that's where I've been ever since.
Awesome. Callisto, where did you get your beginning?
So I was looking for a come down after years of Final Fantasy XI. Played that for about 6 years. I had gotten into men's league hockey, actually, and then remembered I was coming on 30 and got injured terribly and needed something that was not as hard on the body, but that was still competitive. And kind of catching up on games coming off of Final Fantasy XI, I had started a GameFly account, so I was just renting random games that sounded cool. I was the guy in like 2010 who was like, "Have you heard of this Mass Effect game? It's crazy." And I saw a trailer for BlazBlue, and it just was like anime stuff with a rad soundtrack, so I rented that, and that was the first time I ever kind of like started to understand some of the mechanics within fighting games, and from there moved on to Street Fighter and a few other games. So yeah, I'm basically here because of weeb music.
I was going to say, it's a good thing you picked such an easy and simple game to start with BlazBlue.
Oh, I had no idea what a fighting game was. I was just like, okay, this music's rad and there's anime. Let's do it.
All right, Kinderparty, where are your humble beginnings?
So I came up on my first fighting game, I guess technically, was on GGPO playing Marvel vs. Capcom 1. And being a total scrub, being terrible, but having a blast. I was a competitive RTS player, so I played on StarCraft ladders, Dawn of War ladders, Company of Heroes, like all over the place, all kinds of RTS games. And then Street Fighter 4 dropped, and I became an 09er through and through. Like, as soon as Street Fighter 4 dropped, I played, 300 hours on the keyboard before I even bought a pad or anything to switch. I was just obsessed with it. And then once 2011 rolled around, of course, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 dropped, it was pretty much game over for me. I was sucked in for life, and I've been to, 30 plus majors since then, and all over the country, and I love it. I really do. It's fantastic, and thankfully, I'm kind of loving Street Fighter 5.
And Lurka, how about you? How did you get your beginnings?
Most of my beginnings have to do with... So, just to clarify for stream, I am representing the super duper new population, as in the first time I touched any Street Fighter was about 3 months ago. And by that I mean Phage had a friend from Lab over who happened to have Street Fighter 4, and he brought over his girlfriend Randy, who happened to also play Street Fighter 4, and she was kind enough to teach me the ways of how to survive while playing Chun-Li by spamming legs. Let me just clarify that Randy actually knows how to play Chun-Li. Like, her footsie game is fantastic. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing, and I'm really good at spamming legs. Which is why I'm very bitter about the changes in Street Fighter 5. But yes, my beginnings is friend of a friend's girlfriend taught me how to play, and she's currently sitting in the upper opposite hand corner of this screen.
All right, so there we have our origin stories. People who've been around for different amounts of time. Of course, with Callisto and Kinderparty representing sort of the old guard, and Sui slightly newer, and Lurkaderp fresh out of the cradle. So let's talk a little bit. All of you started off in 4, or had a decent amount of experience in 4 before this big shift to 5. So what was the first thing that you noticed? Nothing super in-depth. Could be the graphics, could be gameplay, anything about the game. What was the first big change that really caught your eye, and how did you adjust to it?
Well, for me, it was Street Fighter. Like, for someone who's like seasoned in the series and has been, I've since I've come into the scene, I've gone back and I played Street Fighter 3, I played Street Fighter 2, all these other Street Fighter games, Street Fighter Alpha, and Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter 4 was in many ways a kind of departure from the series stylistically. It was very different, and it was very approachable, which was good, but it was different. And I don't know if Callisto notices this or not, or if he agrees with me, but Street Fighter 5 to me was a return to like the roots of how the game is played. I don't know if anybody else saw that, Ryan. I don't know if that's
I very much a lot of seasoned players agree with that. And as someone who started with Street Fighter 4, probably the biggest change for me is that older Street Fighters are a bit more chaotic. Street Fighter 2, for those of you who don't know, literally had random damage. There was like an algorithm. It was like an RPG. You could hit them, and there's an algorithm of a range that damage could fall within. Where Street Fighter 4 was a very, I'll call it a stable game. The knockdowns were always the same amount of time off of a set move, so you could develop a flowchart of sorts. And the game lent itself very well to pre-planning and exploring, as opposed to just grinding out matches. The first thing I noticed off the bat in Street Fighter V was when you knock somebody down in Street Fighter V, with very little exceptions, they're up right away and they're ready to fight. Where Street Fighter 4, you would have a set amount of time after knocking them down, and that's when you get to come up with the dumbest, dirtiest thing you could do to guarantee the next hit, which was definitely my part of the game. Another big change is all characters can do a lot of damage, but you have to be close, and you have to kind of hit somebody, like really slap them with something heavy right in their face. Where I played a character in Street Fighter 4, Sakura, that was based on converting one hit from the mid-neutral range with punishing somebody for half their health. And that does not exist in this game. You can whiff punish, you can do half of somebody's health. You cannot do those in the same turn. So that's been a very big adjustment so far. And as far as how I've adjusted my playstyle to compensate, I cannot say that I have yet. I'm still working on that part.
And Suri, how about you?
I think the biggest thing I noticed is that there's a lot more character-specific knowledge that you have to have, particularly in matchups. So I was dabbling around with Nikali, for instance, and I found a lot of projectiles that his back forward slash does not go through. Like Rashid's fireballs, his little wind things actually hit twice. If Lara charges up her stuff, that hits twice.
I just learned that now too. Then I didn't.
That's new stuff. That's new stuff.
I thought it's just 8 projectiles.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And I've actually had several moments where I was just like, "This is absolute bullshit. Why do I have a move that can't go through like 3 characters' projectiles?" And it's just stupid, unsafe, and gets jabbed out of the air a lot. But yeah, I think there's just a lot more things. Like I tried to command throw Armika, and she X'd it, and that's not... You can't command throw that command throw. So just a lot of really character-specific things that really require you to sit down and like actually have matches against those characters to really figure out what's going on.
Excellent. And how about you, Lurkaderp?
Well, as I already complained about, the biggest thing I noticed is that I cannot spam my Chun-Li legs anymore, which was my go-to mash the button in panic. On the other hand, that does mean that I've actually had to play more heroes because I couldn't... Heroes. I played too much Dota, guys. Characters. I've had to try other characters and try to figure out the mechanics on those. And have come to the conclusion that Cammy is my new Chun-Li because her low heavy kick is super duper fun. And basically, if anybody comes at you from overhead, just run away. And these are 2 very basic things that I can manage to accomplish.
Excellent. And so Lurka has actually kind of led us into the next thing I wanted to bring up. Who have you kept as a main character? If you've kept someone, or if you've changed, why did that change occur? Give us one reason for the maintenance of the main or the change to someone new. So Lurka, you just went. We'll go in reverse order this time. Kinderparty, hit us with what you got.
Okay, so I'm Gee Boys through and through. Ryu and Ken, ride or die, never gonna stop. I don't care what game it is. I've played them in every single one. I started with Ryu in Marvel 1. I played Ryu in Captain America. I will literally play Ryu and Ken until the day I die. And good gosh gracious, am I lucky because they are both so fresh and super sick in 5. They are both completely different characters and they have crazy different spins on them. They can play from any range of the game. They are awesome. So I'm not going anywhere. I play them in 4. I'm going to play them in 5. I'll probably play them until I die. And I'm happy. I'm happy. The shoulders are great. Shoulders are great.
And Callisto, of course, Sakura is not yet in 5, so you were kind of forced to pick a new
Yeah. So probably something that I've talked about a bit. Those who talk games with me often. I feel like you can perform better with a character who you actually identify with. Sakura had obviously, I liked her gameplay. It fit with what my hands wanted to do. I wanted to do long combos, but something that it really came down to was I really enjoyed that the character of Sakura didn't have the skill or the experience of someone like Ryu, but she had the enthusiasm to make up for it. And she could win any fight just from pure enthusiasm of like really going for it. And that's something that it was a big blow. I've never had a character crisis in a game. I've in basically anime games have been like main character with a big sword sold, where Street Fighter was just I identified with a character off the bat and it stuck, and then the gameplay also happened to be there. So I've been playing Armika just because she's the closest thing in terms of a character that I can find. She's a good wrestler, but she just wants to be a great wrestler, and her combos I find hilarious. They feel like the old Nintendo, the pro wrestling game. Like you throw someone off the ropes and then you drop kick them in the face, and it's just a ton of fun. I like dumb fun, and it's been the closest thing that I can find. If Sakura is added to the game, I'll say when. She's too iconic of a character to not eventually make it in. But I absolutely will main her, no matter what changes are made to her gameplay. But yeah, this is definitely the first time I've had to really sit and think about who I'm going to play instead of being like, I like them once. I like them right now, and I'm going to play them forever. So that's been a very tough adjustment for 5 so far.
And how about you, Sui? Have you stuck with the same characters, or are you branching out a bit?
So I have stuck with Chun. Part of it, I think, is because I didn't know how to play fighting games until Street Fighter 4, and Chun was one of the first characters I picked up and really identified with her, Thunder Thighs for life. But I came to the realization quite late in Street Fighter 4's life that my playstyle developed because I played Chun. I started playing Honda, and it was almost an immediate better fit, but since there isn't really a very Honda-like character that I've come across yet, I've been sticking with Chun mostly because I like to play at a range and nobody else has quite the range that she does with her pokes. And she still plays very similarly. She's allowed to be more aggressive now, which I think works a little bit better for me. A lot of her stuff is not safe, and the biggest thing I've had to start to try and address is she's got a lot of directional normals, and with the input leniency, I'm not used to having to figure out how long my stick needs to rest at neutral to get her neutral heavy kick to come out. So that's been my biggest issue. I've died a lot of times because forward heavy kick came out instead of neutral or back heavy.
So a number of you have brought up, with these adjustments that you're making, significant changes to your characters, in particular things that you're struggling with now that it is either a new character in Callisto's case or the same character but very different timings. So with that in mind, let's talk about the whole cast a little bit more. So two-part question. Number 1, who do you think is the strongest character? Who do you think is the weakest? And number 2, who do you really want to fight and who do you really not want to fight with your main? Sui, I'll toss it back up to you. Sorry, you got the short end of the stick here.
Yeah.
So top character overall, top character that you want to fight. Worst character overall, character who will absolutely dumpster you no matter who is playing them.
Yeah, so for me, I get dumpstered by a lot of people right now because I don't have the matchup knowledge that I need. I think the worst one for me is probably Zangief. I don't want to fight a Zangief mostly right now because I don't know the range to stay out of his command throw, and when he gets in command throw range, you just get in trouble. As far as worst characters, I don't know that there. I don't personally have a character that I think is the worst character on the roster. I think every character has a lot of tools, and people just haven't really sufficiently explored how to use each of those tools. In terms of best characters, I think Bison is up there. I also don't want to fight Bison. I get frame trapped by Bison all the time, and with his safe wheel kick. So that's as far as who do I want to fight. I don't really know who I would want to fight. I guess anybody that gives me the matchup knowledge that I need.
All right. How about you, Callisto?
As far as top characters, I will say I think that this is the most balanced a fighting game roster has ever launched in the history of fighting games. I think it's actually unequivocal. I think there is no argument that this is the closest tiers have been ever at launch. Every character feels really viable. I think there's a couple of distinct top tiers. I think Chun-Li is very good. I think Vega is very, very good, and I think Dhalsim is very good. Bison is also up there. If I were to pick a top four, just not necessarily off of what we've seen players do, because a lot of it boils down to that. You know, what a character can do and what a person can actually do with a character are two different things. But I've been finding that the difference between good and bad, a lot of times it boils down to how you engage the opponent. And there's some characters, particularly based on their having a good dash and then having safe pressure after that good dash, that are particularly good just because they can choose when to engage footsies. Bison can dash clean through a poke. I mean, the middle of his dash is invincible. He can choose to just dash at you. And if you press a button, that's the wrong button, he gets a punish. So he can engage whenever he feels like. Chun-Li has a full combo off of a crouching jab, like a full real Street Fighter 4 hit confirm combo. I believe one of the only characters that can do that. And a great dash. So she can approach you when she feels like and begin pressuring. As far as characters I don't want to face, as Armika, I'm probably having the most trouble with Chun-Li. Just her buttons line up very favorably against Armika's buttons. She also builds meter very quickly, as does most of the cast. So when I do get the knockdown, she almost always has EX spinning bird kick, so I have to respect it, and I can't necessarily pressure her in the way that would really start up Mika's game, because Mika is a character who it's going to take her a little while to get in, but when she gets in, she's going to hurt you very, very badly. The damage is real, and the mix-ups are real. So as far as a worst character, looking at the roster right now, it's hard to even say. In theory, you would have to say Zangief, just because grapplers in this game do not have what they used to, where grapplers used to have to work to get in Street Fighter 4, and you did not want to be close to them. But in this game, they don't have two-frame command grabs, and they don't have invincible reversals, so there's no detriment to being right up next to a grappler. I think that would kind of pit Zangief as the worst character right now, because he has to work just as hard to get in, but if you knock him down, you can just rush him down, and there's absolutely no reason not to. You treat him just like every other character in the game, except maybe even less so, because he doesn't have an uppercut like a Shoto or Chun-Li or Karen or Rashid would.
Awesome. That was quite a hefty piece of analysis.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. That was fantastic. That's exactly what we're looking for. So, KP, good luck. You got to follow that.
No problem. Okay, so here's the thing that's cool about the cast of Street Fighter V, and Callisto is 100% right. They are super well balanced, and it's a phenomenal thing to finally have a cast that comes out and is so closely knit as far as character strength. And the reason why that is, it is a little bit of a double-edged sword in itself, because it's a small cast. For Street Fighter games, there's usually a pretty robust cast, especially with 4. And obviously, Marvel 3 has like
I do think
50?
4 at least launched with the same number of characters, but I wasn't around
did.
for vanilla, so
That was Arcade launched with like even fewer characters. Like it was pretty small. But 16 in 2016 is a small cast, and that allows them to more closely tune the matchups. They can, it's more easy to monitor anything that might be ridiculous when you have a smaller cast, and that's really great. However, I mean, as you guys have heard from just in this call, there's a much smaller selection, and in 4 there was a character for everybody. Like literally, you could find someone that like, oh, I identify this character. This character is cool. I'm gonna do with that. You still have people finding their characters now in 5, and that's a really big problem. A lot of people don't have that luxury of just a huge select and just say, oh, that one, I super like that character. Some people are having to dig a little bit harder, so that's unfortunate. As far as top character, I definitely would say Chun-Li. She has pretty much a complete package. One of the best reversals in the game. She's very, very strong. Worst character in the game, I would say, is Laura, and that's only because she has, just like Geef, no reversal options whatsoever. She does not have the health that Geef has going for her. She has to work very hard to come in. She has a dash special kind of thing, but if you hit her, it's a counter hit, so it's very risky. She's very hard. She's very hard. She's going to take a long time to develop. Her strength is the inside game. She has probably the best reset game up close, but right now in this meta, she's probably the worst. The character I like fighting the most is definitely Ryu, because when you play Ryu, it gets real. It gets very real. Whenever you're playing Ryu, like that is literally like, especially if you run into a good Ryu, man, like that is a rush, because you guys are playing Street Fighter, like straight up, like just come get it, come catch these Shoryukens, come catch these fireballs, and when you beat a Ryu, you feel like you got, you feel like you beat that Ryu. That's a good feeling.
I say that the first time Ryu hit me for 55%, I had to double check what game this was. I had to, I went to the home menu.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I looked at I pressed options to see what was going on to make sure I had downloaded the correct game, because Ryu hit me for over half of my health.
It gives me chills. It
was the computer.
And you're sitting
The computer.
There like, NetherRealm and Street Fighter now?
Hold on.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
like he's not
in survival
doing this.
mode, the computer parried a charged heavy kick as Mika, and then hit me with fierce uppercut super for 55% of my health.
Yeah.
And that was to end a survival run at like floor 29. So-
Yeah, Ryu has gross combos in this game. Gross. You can cancel in the dungeon. You can cancel in so many ways. And you just create damage out of thin air with Ryu, which is crazy. Like, that is so much fun. And, like, I mean, he just chunks health out of people, which is it's a blast.
That's a fantastic balancing factor in this game, is everybody has damage. Damage is not something that evil Ryu gets. Damage is something that every single character gets.
Yeah, bar none, and that's a great way of balancing it. It's kind of like the Marvel vs. Capcom 3 approach. You just give it to everybody, and it's not really so ridiculous.
Joe.
Especially because they're pushing counters so hard in this game, which is really nice. But character I hate fighting, Rashid. Get him out of here. I hate him. He's insane. He's all over the place. He doesn't fit the mold.
Hold
he reminds
on.
me of like El Fuerte.
Can we talk about the Marvel player saying that?
Get him out of here! This
Rashid
isn't
in the
Marvel.
game?
It's not Marvel. I know when I see Marvel, that character is wacky. He reminds me of like a weird Viper, like Fuerte nonsense factory. I don't know. I hate it. Get him out of here.
I mean, he's not the character who can call in the assists, right? Shouldn't you be mad about Armika as well?
Armika's also whack too, because she looks dumb and she's super annoying up close. But now I play Ryu and I can just parry that Sam Roundhouse, and that's, well, we just went through that, so
Yeah.
that's where that gets me, and that matchup's not so bad anymore. But I will say this real quick: Ken is top 5. Ken is 100% guaranteed top 5 in the game. I can say that.
I will agree with that, but I'll also say that there's 12 characters in top 5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm willing to say there's 5 definitively. I can guarantee 5, and Ken is part of them.
Now, I'm assuming that this Ken ranking is coming largely from the Lupe Daigo matchup that we all saw.
Yeah, exactly. The best in the world, right?
Top of the charts.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it, but I think that's coming from the Kinderparty Callisto matchup.
No,
Well, we'll get to that a bit later on. So for those of you watching, we will actually have a bit of a friendly going on after this. Callisto and KP have agreed to go at it for all of you. So we'll actually be hosting Callisto's stream for that. So you guys, if you don't already follow him, you can toss him one. But we'll get a bit more into that rivalry later on. First, we need Lurkaderp. Well, your top, your bottom. Who do you like facing? Who don't you like facing?
Okay. So keeping in mind that a very large part of my view of this is based on the tier of people that I play up against, which is mostly people who are reasonably new like me and have only some marginal idea of what they're doing. I think characters whose mechanics are fairly basic and whose combos you can learn in conjunction with basic mechanics, like Cammy, are very useful for starting out with. So for me, it makes sense that I like her. In terms of what I see as being really competitive, definitely Chun-Li, because part of the reason I'm saying that is because I can't play her anymore. She has a much higher skill cap than I can meet, which means that she's definitely a lot more competitive than I could ever make her. In terms of who seems weaker this in Street Fighter V versus Street Fighter IV, I definitely agree about Zangief, because previously, every time one of my more experienced friends would play Zangief, I would get massively dumpstered. I took a round off him recently, which suggests to me that possibly Zangief is not quite as strong as he used to be. In addition, I really would look forward to playing a bit of Rashid. And now that I'm hearing that Kinderparty wants him out, that suggests to me that definitely I should totally start playing Rashid.
He's good.
But I did actually see him played a little bit, again, by somebody closer to my tier level. And he looks like somebody that you can learn some mechanics with as well. So, really good, Chun-Li, really bad, Zangief. I really want to face... no, who do I really want to face? I don't know, I don't mind going up against Zangief now, so let's say that. And really don't want to go up against Rashid. Anybody who knows what they're doing on Chun-Li, and... shout out to OFL Kendra, one of the other One Frame Link people. If Kendra is playing Fang, I don't want to go anywhere near that shit.
Take the poison.
So, just one little note about Chun-Li, because while she does have a lot of damage, her damage is locked behind higher execution stuff, so you do have to practice more of her combos. That being said, she can neck breaker into super, which is a noob killer online, especially if they've been playing survival mode CPU. So she does have good lower damage, but if you really want to do some really nasty stuff, it is kind of locked behind some execution.
Yeah, you need that crouch forward spinning bird kick combo, which is one of the few executionally difficult combos in the game. For those who don't know, Street Fighter V did add something called an input buffer, which is every time you press a button, the game is broken up into 60 frames per second, and in every other Street Fighter game, one button press equals 1 frame of input, where in this game, if you press the button, it counts for 3 frames. Mm-hmm. So ostensibly, even the tightest link is at least a 3-frame link, which is, that's 1/20th of a second. That is not an easy human task, but if you've been playing for a long time, it's something where you can definitely feel your way around, especially coming off of Street Fighter IV, which is largely based on 1-frame links.
That's the name.
And, so Chun-Li is definitely... It's a weird dichotomy of she's one of the few characters that retains a Street Fighter IV style combo in terms of what she can do, but she's also one of the few characters who retains a Street Fighter IV combo in that it's actually difficult to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, speaking of these changes in mechanics, this brings us right into the next topic we'd like to hit. So, of course, one of the things that we've seen change from 4 to 5 is the complete lack of 1-frame links. Overall, that's taken to mean that the combos that are present in 5 have a lower threshold of execution overall. It is easier to hit the hardest combos as a player who is first learning them. However, it's not the only mechanic that's changed. In particular, we've seen a drastic decrease in the number of hard knockdowns, as well as fewer option selects that are present in the game. So I'd just like to give you guys a chance to talk about, sort of at your tier of play, how does the presence or absence of these mechanics change the gameplay? How are you seeing people adjust to it? Is it a good or a bad change? What does it mean for how competitive the game can be? And do you personally love or hate the change? So, Sui, why don't we start with you?
Well, I couldn't do one frame links or option selects or any of that stuff anyway, so I am perfectly fine with them going away. I never thought I'd be a combo player, which is one of the reasons I played Chun-Li in 4. And the fact that I can do some bread and butter combos fairly easily is nice and kind of bolstering. The hard knockdowns I do miss a little bit. On the other hand, you do have to learn how to quick get up, which I never learned how to do because I didn't know it was a thing I could do. So I'm still struggling with that a little bit. I do miss the ability to go in a little more after a knockdown. But overall, I'm fairly okay with the way the mechanics have changed. The input leniency in this game is causing me to have to address my execution much more. Just because, especially with Chun-Li, it's very easy to get spinning bird kick when you meant to do lightning legs if you've been holding down back. So, and I already mentioned before about her directional normals being something that I really have to adjust how much I move my stick around for. So.
All right, so before I let, I know Callisto, you and Kinderparty have some very strong feelings about this subject. So before I let you two put on the proverbial boxing gloves, let's hop over to Lurka and see what she has to say.
I'm with Suaixtix on this one in that I couldn't consistently hit anything to save my life, including managing to actually and intentionally hit the spinning bird kick. So I have no problem with a little bit more of a buffer. In terms of how much it impacts people at my tier, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Because if you're at my tier, you can't play well enough to even know that there is a difference, let alone to do anything with said difference. That being said, you can notice it in the sense that like this character that would have previously dumpstered me no longer does so, but you don't understand the mechanics of why or how or anything in that vein. So I think this is going to be a much more interesting discussion once we hand it off to Callisto and Kinderparty.
All right, guys, have at it. Callisto, I know your feelings, so let's have you get us started with a little bit of flame.
All right. Well, to start, as we mentioned earlier, I played Sakura in Street Fighter 4, which is a character that was built around one-frame links. That is a character where she is disadvantaged in several areas, but if you can consistently execute difficult things, you are never ever out of a match. If you have if you had 1.5 bars of meter and you could do one-frame links every time, you could come back from any deficit. So the best way I can put it is my feeling is that Street Fighter 4 had 3 very distinct phases of play. There was the neutral game phase where, it's the same way it is in Street Fighter 5. You're trying to maintain a certain spacing from the opponent that benefits what moves you have versus what they do. You're jockeying for position, and you're trying not to give up too much ground until you land a hit and you knock them down. In Street Fighter 4, the second phase was when you land a hit, there was a combo phase, which, similar to Marvel or an anime game, depending on the character you play, where you could do a long, silly combo if you wanted to spend resources in order to do it, and you could execute it. And then there was a set play phase where you end your combo, you knock them down, and then you get a mix-up and they have to determine how to defend it best. It feels like Street Fighter V basically patched out the second and third phase. There's a neutral phase, and then you knock them down, and then now some of this is the character that I play, but if you mash back tech and you get up quickly, we're back to the neutral phase. And I don't get a combo phase, and I don't get a set play phase. It's just neutral phase into neutral phase into neutral phase. And I don't think this is objectively a bad thing, and the same goes for option selects. Many people did not like extended combos. They didn't like waiting, 20 seconds for their turn, and they didn't like having to deal with some absurd, possibly unblockable mix-up when they got knocked down. They also didn't like having to deal with option selects, which is where you basically find an exploit in the way the game accepts inputs into where if the opponent does one thing, the same sequence of buttons will come out as one action, where if the opponent takes a different action, it will come out as something else that will also be their second choice. I don't think removing those is bad, but there were, in those three phases of neutral, combo, and set play, if you were very good at one of them and you were okay at the other two, you were competitive in that game. If you had played the game for 9 months, but you were very good at your execution, you could compete with somebody who had played Street Fighter for 10 years. Where in this game, it's so heavily weighted towards the neutral game, which is the one of those three things that you cannot get by yourself. You can only get it by playing match after match after match. So players with a lot of experience will have an inherent advantage there. And when the execution becomes easier, that wasn't what the experienced players relied on. It was the newer players that relied on doing half of your health in one combo. So the combo end that the new players were good at and the old players were not as good at is gone. And the neutral end is much more important, which is what the older players are at. And probably what this boils down to is the game sells itself with the input buffers being easier for newer players, where in reality it's weighted much more heavily in the favor of experienced players. If you pick this game up as a new player and you don't know frame data and you don't understand spacing and you don't know what button will do what, you're going to get more mopped by an experienced player than you ever would, and you won't be able to make up that difference with a wacky setup or a crazy combo. So that's kind of my take on the mechanical differences between the two.
So this is kind of, as was alluded to earlier, this is taking it back to quote-unquote real Street Fighter,
Yes.
much closer to the early games.
Now something I do kind of want to caveat all this with is that's obviously very personal bias, because I'm someone who started with Street Fighter 4, and I genuinely loved Street Fighter 4. I was a Street Fighter 4 player before I was any other sort of player. I do think some of these things are pretty intentional, because the combos being easier means that it's easier to learn new characters. I think that they're intentionally designing this game to be more of, you should play everybody and be able to counterpick your way out of a matchup instead of just really digging deep into one character and finding everything you can. You should become an expert at the game and not at a character. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because they design, 16 characters off the bat, 6 more coming this year, probably dozens coming in the future, and it seems like kind of a waste to only play one of them.
So you're seeing a shift in the meta more towards character selection rather than just in-game play.
Absolutely. With how easy it is to learn a character's combos with the execution buffer and whatnot, I think that's the way to go, is that you should be playing 3 or 4 characters, not one.
Now, I hate to take this out of Street Fighter, but there are some shades of these arguments that we've heard around games like Melee for years, where it's an old game. There are these phases where people think, oh, we figured out just about all the tech that there is. Now it's just a matter of putting those pieces together, and yet every couple of months there's some new piece of tech that's discovered. Do you think that something like that will still be the case here, especially with the possibility to implement patches and introduce that type of tech, or is it going to remain a bit more static?
Yeah, a good example is this is I hosted a Street Fighter 4 tournament the night before Street Fighter 5 launched, and it was my last opportunity to play Street Fighter 4, really to go serious on it. And as part of that, I practiced the night before just by going into training mode and diddling on random characters. I found a DJ specific combo that only works in the corner and only off of a certain starter. This game is 7 years old, and I found a combo that nobody had ever seen before. The night before it was buried. So now I don't know if the mechanics of Street Fighter 5 are deep enough to allow for something like that, but I would never rule that out for any game, especially a patchable game where, for those who might remember, half the mechanics in Ultra Street Fighter 4 didn't exist in vanilla Street Fighter 4. There was only one Ultra combo. You didn't have 2. Much less the ability to choose double, to choose both of them for reduced damage. That was new in Ultra Street Fighter 4. There was only 2 types of knockdown, a hard knockdown and a soft knockdown. There wasn't a delayed wake up. There was not red focus. So over the course of 7 years, the core mechanics of that game became very different, and the meta in turn changed around them. So who's to say that they don't patch in a change and all of a sudden there's different ways to gain V-trigger, or there are, changes in how meter are gained, or there's just every character has 2 supers with different functionalities. Anything can happen with this game.
All right, so I have to admit that was a bit more optimistic than I was hoping for. I wanted you to be all doom and gloom so we could get some really good adversarial conversation going on in here. But KP, it falls on you to explain to everyone why Callisto's wrong. This game really is for everyone. He needs to get out of his old ways, stop practicing those one-frame links, and embrace the future.
Yeah, no, I'm literally 100% opposite of this because I think that, and it's obvious to some people, and I think to me, especially with now playing the game, Street Fighter V is built from the ground up to make a better Street Fighter player. That is what it is designed to do. It is designed to make you a better Street Fighter player. If you are trying to make a game, a long-term competitive game that is esports ready, that is going to, stage an arena, blah, 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 blah. If you want that and you want to get people playing it, you have to build a game that is going to teach Street Fighter players. Teach them how to be good Street Fighter players. And that is what the game does. Let me ask you something. Ryan, there's a guy in Top 8 Winter Brawl. His name was 3K. Have you heard of him?
Absolutely not. And yes,
what?
I know.
What? You haven't heard of him? That's weird. He's only a hot competitive NBA 2K16 sensation. Exactly, right? What?
Yeah.
But here he is in top 8 of one of the biggest tournaments already for the game.
Remind me,
and that
was he a Nash player?
was a Nash player.
Yeah.
And that
He was a very old school feeling character.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most of them are. And that is what the game is supposed to do. And I see what you're saying. Okay, so they're removing the second phase. I think that's true to an extent. I think what Street Fighter 4 did was, in some ways, by creating the Oki phase, Oki-zemi is a word for what we call like set play, is where someone's standing up into your mix-up and they have to take it. So it's called an Oki situation, that's what we call it. That could happen so often at any point of the stage. In Street Fighter games, that was a corner thing, basically always. Like, you wanted stage presence to be a huge factor in the game. That's what Street Fighter V does. Street Fighter V brings back other things that maybe you don't see it immediately, but it creates a mix-up phase. It creates a setup phase. Whenever you're in the corner, that is 100% setup phase to the 9,000. You are rewarded in your neutral with an advantage. And that's where Street Fighter V really shines. Yeah, you can back tech, you can back roll, you can get out of the pressure situation, but you also just gave up another chunk of screen. You're backing yourself up. Normals, medium punch, heavy punch, they're doing white damage. You're stacking up chip damage. These monster pressure characters, like a Dudley in Street Fighter 4, he doesn't have to worry about going for the mix-up, he's pressuring. Imagine if every button that Dudley landed on somebody added a little bit of white life. That's terrifying. And that's what you have in Street Fighter V. And I disagree that there aren't characters that can do 50% life, and that new players can't understand that. Read bread and butter. You just said it yourself. Basic stuff, and you're doing big combos. And that's what it's doing. It's trying to negate that entry point. Absolutely, old players are more at home in this game, and they are stronger.
I think the trade-off there that really is hitting me as a player who, I focus my game around execution. I believe that the hits will come, and the most important thing is that my hands do what they need to. And I feel like players like me is kind of where Street Fighter V let us out in the cold. It doesn't give us any execution to lab. It doesn't give, there isn't some, in Street Fighter V, I could have played Sagat. And I probably could have won a lot of matches with just uppercuts and fireballs. But I chose a character where if I could execute, I could hit you so much harder than that character ever could, just because I practiced and practiced and practiced and got it down. And that's what I feel like's missing. That's
specific, though. That's specific to you. That is specific to something that you want. And if you're a big company like Sony and you're a big company like Capcom, and you're looking out there, and you're looking at all these potential new Street Fighter players that you're trying to build for your super successful esport that you're going to support with DLC, etc., etc. Are you going to look at the guys, and you're going to see some guys, and you're going to see some folks like you who are like, yeah, I want to be able to flex my fingers. I want to be able to style on you because I can do all the hard stuff that you can't, and I'm getting rewarded for it. but you are a small minority.
Oh yeah,
Small.
absolutely.
There are so many people, myself included, like Street Fighter 4, I competed in for 2 years. I competed through Super, and as soon as it got to the point where I had to start memorizing my option selects, my one frame links, I had to start going in training mode, and that's all I would do is I would sit there and just get this muscle memory in so I could get the timing down for this one frame link that I needed to make my character punish, appropriately. Otherwise, nobody was respecting my punishes. I needed that, and that's not fun for most people. Like, that's where a lot of people jump ship. I understand that for you, that is where you really buckled in, and you were like, this is awesome.
I think the big difference is Street Fighter 4 left it open for everybody, because there were characters that could just play a very basic, Shotoe style. There were characters that could turtle, and then there were characters that you could grind execution until your hands fell off, and then it rewarded you for it, and you could take any of those approaches. And that's what I feel is missing. Is I feel that now some of that, something like Fang helps a very zony, frustrate you character.
God, yes.
But it feels like, despite given different tools, many of the characters play the same.
Have you played Dalsum at all?
Even Dalsum rushes you down. That's a great point.
But have you tried doing Dalsum's rushdown?
No, yes,
it's very hard.
I agree with that.
Easy.
I'll grant that.
It's not easy. If you want an execution lab monster, if you want to have a set play beast, that whenever you're inside, you are chaining together normals at incredible rates. You're getting big damage. You're doing instant air gales for like plus 13, but if you mess it up, then you're eating a big fat combo from Dalsum. If you want that, those characters do exist. They're just a little bit unexpected this time.
See, the Street Fighter 4 player in me would argue that you just said you're going to eat a big fat combo from Dalsum, which tells me something is wrong with the game.
You would say that, but in Street Fighter 2, Dalsum could throw loop you for a billion damage. In Marvel 2, Dalsum was the best rushdown character in the business. Now, that's strictly off of one version of the game. And that, as a guy who came in as a Street Fighter 4 player, and you're kind of an anime player, so you kind of already, you kind of like that. You kind of already like to have and press a lot of buttons to do your stuff. That's where you divide, I think, from where Capcom sees the future of the game. Capcom was trying to make a game that built Street Fighter players, and is going to continue to build Street Fighter players, because that's where the complexity is.
I would absolutely
everything
agree
else.
with that. And that leads into probably one of my gripes on the mechanical changes, though, is that it being sold as a game with a lower point of entry, especially with the input buffer and such. But you have to be a real Street Fighter player to even be mid-level in this game. I mean, you have to know you have to recognize a shimmy and not press a button into it.
Maybe.
A shimmy, for those of you who don't know, is when you knock somebody down and you lurch forward as if you're going to throw them when they stand up, and then you take a step back. So they press throw in an attempt to break your throw, and then you punish them for whiffing a throw. It's something where it's a simple tactic, but it's advanced. It's a very big difference between committing to a throw or making them think you're going to commit to a throw. And that's the type of advanced things where you don't need to be advanced in this game in terms of doing, ridiculously difficult manual, execution. You do need to be very advanced in terms of conditioning the opponent. I do agree with you that it is absolutely great for teaching that, or not for teaching it, but for instilling that that's what you need to do to be good at this game. So people will get good at that. I think where it falls short is that's the entry point.
So just to kind of jump in on this a little bit. So one of the things that I think I sort of disliked about 4 is I was a poke and play player, and I could control the space of a match, and I could still end up losing just because of ultras, big combos, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Always frustrated me as a player. And the other thing I sort of noticed is that in 4, I got away with a lot of stuff. I have big holes in my game that I never was forced to fix in 4 because I had ultras, because I had all this other jazz that I was able to sort of just patch it with a band-aid, and I could still win matches, and I was never forced to sit down and address the fact that I'm throwing the sweep out a little bit too close, but it doesn't matter because I'll just eat it, I'll just eat this, and then I'll just catch you in an ultra in 2 seconds. And I think that's where 5 is really forcing you to sit down and actually learn what do your buttons do, what's safe, what's not. And it's really is putting a focus on more understanding where you're not being, what you're doing that's not good, rather than just, oh, here's a thing that'll help you compensate for the fact that you're not good in this area.
Now,
Yes,
can I
that
put
is
you this
1000%.
question, Sui?
Sure.
Starting out, if you think of how many matches you stole because you landed EX Lightning Legs into Ultra, right? Like, maybe not prior to Ultra because it didn't do any damage back then, but later on. Would you have stuck with the game if it weren't for those victories that you clutched out because the game gave you that little something to, you know, to pull a victory maybe that you didn't deserve because there was a mechanic, because you just hit a combo. You hit a good combo and you did half their health, and it leveled the playing field between someone who, if you played them 9 more times, they would have beaten you those 9 times, but you were able to get that one. And I feel like for newer players, that's kind of what's missing is, as an experienced player for myself and for KP, it's very easy to say this will turn you into an honest Street Fighter player and you'll really learn the game. The part of me that remembers that it was only 4 years ago that I couldn't do an FADC into an Ultra thinks, what if I had just been mauled in every single match that I attempted for the first year that I played because there was no backup plan? That's probably what concerns me a little bit. Not for me myself. This is probably a great time for Lurka to chime in.
Well, I was going to say, no backup plan, but then what about this new meter they've introduced that charges up as you're getting hit and gives your character a special boost apart from your standard Ultra meter? Talk to me about that mechanic and how it affects the gameplay in 5. Does that remove the feel of the original Street Fighter? What types of new technology are we seeing coming out? Is it being overutilized, underutilized? Where do you see it going?
KP, you have probably a more basic one. Maybe you want to start that one?
Oh man, the V system is phenomenal. Like, the V system is actually brilliant. They had a fantastic idea putting the V system in the game. Not only does it make all the characters super diverse, it's basically an instinct cancel. They're borrowing a little bit from Killer Instinct. It's very, like, I don't know. It's kind of stolen a little bit, but it diversifies. It diversifies the cast, and I like that. And I like that they went with that, but they also introduced an incredible mechanic that is so useful in the meta. Like, okay, so for instance, Ryan, if you're a Bison player, okay, the special thing about V meter is it goes away at the end of the round. You lose it. You don't keep it. So there's an incentive to use it, either via V trigger, V reversal, some way you're supposed to use it. Ryan, you're a Bison player. I'm a Laura player, okay? I don't have any reversals. But you're a Bison player, and you're coming at me, and you know I don't have any reversals, so you do EX scissors at the end of your block string so you can get mad plus frames, so you can keep going in and whooping me because I don't have a reversal. Wait a minute, I do. I have a V reversal, and it doesn't cost me anything. It costs me a bar that's going to go away if I don't use it, and I just negated what you used as meter to make an advantage. You used EX scissors, a bar that actually stays at the end of the round, to try and get an advantage on me, Laura, a disadvantaged character, and I use a resource that I don't necessarily even know I'm going to have at the end of the round anyways, and I'm at a huge advantage now. You're knocked down, and I'm moving in. V is super amazing. V is going to be a huge part of the meta. Alpha counters, baiting alpha counters, or V reversals as they're called. Some characters like Ken can combo off of theirs and do huge damage. Personally, I love it. I don't know about anybody else. Yeah.
For me, the V system itself conceptually is great. It reminds me, like you said, of Instinct or of Drive and BlazBlue, something to separate each character, where Focus Attack was, I think a lot of people give it a lot of crap. I think it was a great balanced mechanic. It was a risk every time you used it. So they could grab. Every character had an armor breaker. There was some risk to using Focus Attack in an attempt to neutralize the opponent's best neutral options. But every character had Focus Attack. And every time the only differences were how far it reached and, things like that. But everyone would use it in the same ways. I think that V reversal or the V system is great in that you need to figure out how to use it best per your character, which does give you a reason to really go in and learn your character. I think V reversals are a little weak. I think the fact that they lose to even medium attacks is a little. Or in the case of someone like Chun-Li, she can pop V trigger and then just back fierce you in the corner, and she's positive enough to beat any button you press, but you also can't V reversal it. So she can just do that for whatever 30 seconds it lasts until you get hit. The disparity in how good certain V skills are is bothering me a little. Mika's V skill is literally useless. You will get punished the majority of times that you use it, just for even to attempting to use the armor on it. Where you have someone like Bison, who can do a lot of things for free, but his V skill is something that he can just throw at a projectile for free to absorb it and throw it back. But those are easily patchable things. That's kind of like make the mic throw, recover 4 frames faster. Ta-da! You have a great V skill when you didn't before. So that's not a major concern. V trigger is fantastic. It is. There are so many good ones. There are so many different ways to set something up, so many different ways to use it. Granted, I play a character that has just a ass-busted V trigger. So as Mika, it's just
Mika's got a sick V trigger. Ryan Hart just put out an unblockable combo with it.
Oh yeah, there's so Mika can do something along the lines of she calls the V trigger, so it's coming, and then she supers. So if you hold up to avoid the super, you're going to get hit by the V trigger. If you don't hold up, you're going to get grabbed by the super. If you're at low health, either way, you win. One of my best setups is that I do a meaty attack. If you block it, I call the V trigger, and then I just sit there. I let you figure it out. Like, what direction is it coming in from? Where's he going to go after that? Like, I don't know. And that goes for a lot of characters. Nash, a character who wouldn't normally have a real reversal. I won't call it real because I don't believe it's invincible frame 1 and it still can't get stuck. Yeah, but he has a second way out where he would otherwise need to wait for a super or wait for a heavy to be a reversal. I don't even want to talk about Bison's because it takes a good character and it's ridiculous. He can literally dash through you. What's happened to me most times is if I'm a hit from dead against a Bison, they pop V-trigger and they just dash back and forth through my body and then just grab. They wait for me to press a button, which inevitably comes out the wrong direction because they just dash through my body, and then they grab me. Chun-Li, amazing V-trigger, just possibly one of the best of the game.
Yeah.
Lasts forever, adds extra hits onto every normal, which means you're doing more chip damage. Everything's safe.
More combos.
Yeah, better combos. Fangs is innocuous, but if you've played anime games, which is where you see someone like Sonic Fox doing great with a character, where you have a V-trigger that will, if you're in proximity to the enemy, they are poisoned, and they're losing health constantly. So if you can do anything to keep them from pressing buttons, they're just losing health, and you're making up any ground you could have lost previously in the round. The same goes for Dulcims. Zangief's is terrifying because Zangief is not a great character, but he can still hit you for half of your health if he touches you. And the fact that he can just bring you closer to him, which is the entire point of fighting Zangief, is to not be next to Zangief. And he can just choose to bring you next to him. I think all around, almost universally, they made fantastic decisions. One of my favorite theory crafting things of the game is when you think about not only the announced DLC characters, but the ones who are just obvious picks for the future, and you start thinking about what are their V-triggers going to be. You have someone like Jury, who it's obvious is going to be Feng Shui Engine, because it's an install super, and it's a great thing. She should have it. But then you take Guile. Guile had 2 special moves in Street Fighter 4. What can you add to Guile to not make him just completely busted? So I love that part of the game. I love that you not only that what is in the game exists, but as someone who loves talking about the game and talking about where the game is and where it can go, how flexible the system is fantastic.
So, Lurka, we've heard from the three of them, Sui enthusiastically chiming in about Chun-Li's V-Trigger there. At something that might be better described as the face roll tier, how are you using V-Trigger? Does it influence your game at all? What do you see coming out of it?
To be entirely honest, I'm not. Like, that's how low level I am right now. I am literally not even using V-Trigger because I can't figure out how the... I'm not. That's my answer. There's my answer.
All right, so of course there hasn't been a whole lot of competitive play yet, but we do know a lot of the players who were real top tier players, and 4 will be coming back or have already come back for 5. Of course, one of the greats already going down to Lupe in that initial exhibition. But these changes to the mechanics obviously don't favor players who were super execution heavy in 4 to the same extent it does someone with a good fundamental footsies game. With that in mind, are there any particular players that you're expecting to just come in and wipe the floor with people that they previously struggled against? On the other side, is there anyone who was just, a combo god who had terrible footsies and is now kind of going to get shat on? So, Sui, why don't we start with you? I know you've spent so much time looking over all of the replays for everything.
Well, I don't really know. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch Kane's Winter Clash this past weekend, so I actually have no idea how anybody's playing so far.
Momochi is filthy. I can guarantee you that. Momochi is filthy. He's going to run Japan.
Infiltration is obviously going to be somebody who can counterpick anything. He's probably playing all of the 16 cast members at this point.
He's just a good video game player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's been said, like, a lot of the older players, the Third Strike players, are probably going to come back and do pretty well in this. And as far as, I don't know, I don't want to say anybody who's going to get shat on. Mostly because I don't want to be on record for being wrong about that. So, yeah.
All right. Lurka, I know you've watched a decent amount. Any thoughts on anyone that you've noticed a particularly good or bad footsie game on, or just has ridiculous combos but nothing else?
Not so far. I definitely agree with Callisto that I'm expecting some bloody terrifying things from Momochi. To be fair, we expected bloody terrifying things from him in the past, and he delivered, so that's not a very difficult case to make. I'm looking forward to seeing more of kind of what Callisto has mentioned that he's had to deal with as a player who plays a technique-heavy game, who has that really high skill cap, looks for characters with like a high skill floor and an even higher ceiling. That even to be able to play them competently, you have to know what you're doing, let alone to play them competitively, you have to really know what you're doing. Those are the matchups that I'm really interested in seeing, and how those players have to change their game on account of maybe their specific character no longer being in until the next patch comes through or something to that effect.
And Callisto and KP, I'll let you guys go in now. You're a bit more familiar with the scene than some of the rest of us, so anyone, even at the local level that you'd like to mention, who you've seen something in particular that makes you think they're really going to shine in this game, or the complete opposite?
Probably if I were to pick someone who I think is going to shine, and he's not quite yet, he still seems like he's kind of searching character-wise, someone like Alex Baye. Someone who built their game on really old school footsies, and someone who was competitive at times at 4, but sometimes he just lost because the other person played Sea Viper or something. Someone who has the conditioning down. You could see that even in Ultra Street Fighter 4 when Hugo came out. Hugo was a character who was built on reads. If you could correctly condition the opponent and read what they were going to do, you would win. And if not, you were very giant and you would get hit very, very hard because you would just eat combos that other characters were too small to eat. Also watching, I watched a fair amount of Daigo's stream. It was kind of interesting seeing that Bonchan, someone who easily one of the top 3 or 4 Street Fighter 4 players across the life of that game, kind of struggling because his character is gone. And he has to play Ryu because Sagata's not in the game. So probably, if I were to pick characters who, or not characters, but players who were considered greats that may have a bit of a hard time, execution-heavy players, Sako, I'd be very curious to see how he did in this game because he is an amazing, phenomenal player in so many games, but a lot of what he does was built on having inhuman execution. Again, Bonchan's someone who was very good at a character, but he never counterpicked. He never moved off of Sagat. So seeing how a top player would do when their character is not in a game and their play style is not necessarily in a game. Even Ryu is not necessarily a throw a fireball until they jump and then uppercut them because so many characters have anti-fireball tools. So I'd be very curious to see how he's going to do. Players who otherwise I think could blow up that maybe would... they were already kind of good at 4, and then we could see them blow up. From what I've seen, NuckleDu's Nash is... Now, NuckleDu took a character in Guile who was not a rushdown character, and he turned him into a rushdown character. And then he's moving on to a rushdown game. That if I were to pick like an 09er per se, a Street Fighter 4 player who I really think could go to the next level in 5, it'd probably be NuckleDu.
All right, how about you, KP? Who do you have in mind to really shine in this game?
I can give you 2 right off the bat. One that I think is going to be amazing, like I just shouted out earlier, Momochi. He is ridiculous. All the Japanese players say he's the best. I've been watching his stream like crazy. The man does not drop. I hit confirm. And Ken, in some ways, is a high execution character right now. It's gonna evaporate pretty quickly. But once Momochi especially gets used to the confirms, he's gonna be really dangerous. But his style of Ken, the punish heavy and the baits and the reads, that is actually how Ken is in 5. I mean, 4, Ken was more like a Shoto with offensive attributes. In 5, he is an offensive Shoto. Like, he is much different. He's got the run cancels. He's got great up-close pressure. I mean, he's very good. He doesn't have his Kara throw, but he doesn't need it. And Momochi has been putting in insane work. And I could tell you someone that Callisto brought up, but didn't necessarily mention specifically, that is struggling really hard, and his character is in this game. In fact, if you think of this character, there might be only one person that comes to mind immediately, and that is Daigo Umehara. And he is struggling super hard in Street Fighter 5 with Ryu because, or at least he was, he's been showing a little bit of signs of life lately, but he was playing him almost straight up just like Street Fighter 4. And that is not okay.
Several people remarked that, actually. I know Ultra David, one of his first thoughts the first time he watched one of Daigo's streams was like, he looks so stiff.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I watched... Daigo actually has a Twitch stream now, called, I believe it's the Beast TV, something like that.
Beast
or
TV,
Daigo... Yeah, Beast Twitch TV/Beast TV. It's coming along. I mean, he's still... He's Daigo for a reason. You know, I'm actually... I am very against putting top players on a pedestal. I believe that I want to fight them. I want to go get them. I don't think they're better than me. Fuck them. I'm going to tear them up.
Amen. Hey, I beat Justin. It happens.
Yeah, but
I mean, if Lupe can beat Daigo, anything can happen, right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
No, there's a reason. There's a reason why certain people have been great through several games, and it comes down to preparation and reactions and just a knowledge of how humans work. And a really great example is on Daigo's stream 2 weeks ago. He was trying to crouch forward into Fireball, which is a Ryu standby, but in Street Fighter 5 that's not how you play him. You're not trying to poke into Fireball because it doesn't get you anything. Where when I watched him a couple days ago, he had a throw setup where he would throw you in the corner and then whiff a jab and then press throw again. And it would, if you stood up and you didn't tech throw, it would throw you. So he did that to Bonchan two or three straight times. And then much like the L.I. Joe kind of video that's been going around. He did it a third time, and then he took a step back, and Bonchan woke up and pressed throw, which whiffed because throw ranges are very short in this game, and then Daigo hit him for 30%. So, that he's coming around.
Excellent. So thank you guys very much for that analysis. Definitely something to keep an eye on in the coming months. We're getting to the end of the show here, but before we go, I'd like to give each of you the opportunity to mention one piece of advice for someone playing at your tier, as well as if you've got anything big coming up that you'd like to tell the world about. This is your opportunity to do so. So Suri, why don't you start us off?
Always first, jeez. In terms of advice, learn your spacing. You gotta learn your spacing and press less buttons.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's if I could pick 3 words of advice to give in this game, you just nailed it.
Go ahead.
In terms of big things coming up, as One Frame Link is the official stats provider for the tour, so looking forward to watching all 72 events this year and logging data for that. So, yeah.
Awesome. And Callisto, how about you?
If there's any advice I could give to newer players, best example I can give is this past Monday, someone who had barely even played Street Fighter 4 had won our local on Monday. And his words to me was that he was glad he hadn't played Street Fighter 4 because he didn't have to adjust. He didn't have a frame of reference that he had to break himself out of. And the best advice I can give, which is something I need to take myself, is forget what you know. If you are not new to fighting games, if you're at my level, if you've been playing for 4 or 5 years, forget what you've played. This is a new game. The reason I'm still playing it is because I just spent 3 or 4 years making fun of Street Fighter 3 players who wouldn't adjust to Street Fighter 4. So I have to man up. I can't be like, oh, whatever, Grandpa.
Hey, I respect that.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter if I hate this game. I got to play it, and I got to get okay at it. So just don't approach this as something to put your knowledge of fighting games on top of. Approach this as a new game and see what you can learn within the context of the game.
Forget what you know unless all you know is early Street Fighter.
Correct. If you played Super Turbo and then you retired for 15 years, go nuts. Do everything you've ever done.
Lurka, how about some words of advice for folks who are a bit newer?
I would definitely stick with the press fewer buttons advice. Also, there's no need to press your buttons. On an ergonomic note, there is no need to press your buttons that goddamn hard. You can push them lightly.
Vicious lies.
You do not have to hit them as hard as humanly possible and ruin your hands forever. It's not required.
That's how the combos drop.
Also, so if people seriously are just at the very beginning of getting into this game, only just starting playing with a fight stick maybe for the first time, if you are brand new to Street Fighter, get good ergonomics now. Make it a habit before anything else happens to you. Press fewer buttons. Don't press them that hard, and try playing somebody who's less spammable and more teaches you basic mechanics along the way. Because like Callisto said, this is a game that's designed to help you not have backups in the same way that, Street Fighter 4 let you get by on spamming Chun-Li's legs if you had no idea how to play a footsie game, which I'm very, very guilty of. Play somebody who forces you to actually learn mechanics and play it with good mechanics of your own.
I do want to state that Lurka and I have talked about this before, her choice of Cammy. If anybody is new to Street Fighter and new to Street Fighter 5 in particular, if I were to pick a beginner character, I think Cammy is the absolute perfect character to start with.
Yep.
I think she forces you to use all of the game's mechanics in order to get what you need to win around. And I think she also is in tune with the things that a newer player would want to do. She has okay throw range, she has good movement speed, she has decent buttons, so if you press them, you're not necessarily going to die. She has an uppercut to mash out if you feel you need to. And then whether or not you win or lose lies on whether you made the right decision to do so. So that's my best advice. This is the first game, I think, ever where someone wouldn't say pick Ryu and then branch out to the rest of the cast. I think pick Cammy learn the game, and then branch out to the rest of the cast.
All right, and KP, you're our last advice giver here, so you got to make it good. What do you got for us?
Okay. All right, so I invite the new Street Fighter players to sitting down with Street Fighter 5, or the not new Street Fighter player. Maybe you're just coming from another game. I started a blog actually, and I basically the point of the blog was to shamelessly get out and just say it. I'm bad at Street Fighter. Like for all this time, I thought I was good. I thought I was a good Street Fighter. I was decent at 4. I thought I was a good Street Fighter player. I thought I was a good fighting game player. I'm not, and I just gotta get used to that, and I gotta get better. And the blog, How Dukin, get it? How Dukin.
Wow.
As I follow my quest to become the best Kin player, I'm actually learning Ryu to become a better Kin. I would explain it, but we don't have time. But it's I invite the guy and the gal who's sitting down to play Street Fighter 5 to just open your eyes, because the game is trying its best to show you how to get better. Street Fighter 4. Whenever someone said you got to go for counter hit setup here, I was like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, you get a counter hit and then you get extra frames. I was like, what is it? What are you talking about? Counter hit? Oh yeah, that's that little thing that pops up on the side of the screen that says counter hit. And you're like, oh yeah, I got a counter hit. Or in Marvel, it's like a little red flash instead of an orange flash. Oh, you got a counter hit. It's so hard to tell. It's impossible to tell. It's really hard to get that kind of feedback. Street Fighter 5 does a much better job. When you hit a cross up, it says cross up. It lets you know that you hit a cross up. Whenever you get a counter with a fierce, it says crush counter, and it goes bang, and big things happen. You get extra things. That's supposed to tell you like, whoa, okay. So when this guy whiffs a move, he whiffs a dragon punch, and I hit him with this one, and it goes bang, and I get a big thing out of it. That's teaching you. That is teaching you. You need to bait that Shoryuken, get your bang, get your loud bang, and that's called becoming a better fighting game player. Street Fighter 5 does a great job of doing that. It does a great job of showing you, just in the game, while you play it. It minimizes, I know we talked a whole lot about this execution, and we kind of left it, whatever. I'm going to say it minimizes execution barrier. It does bring it down at a basic level, and it is trying to show you what to do. Just watch. If you see a move, if Bison goes, "Rah!" and it's a big purple punch, and he hits you for like 9 years, don't hit buttons after that. It's trying to tell you, this is important. This is important. Don't mess with it. It's trying to do that. And that's why I think Street Fighter 5 is really phenomenal, especially if you're a new player. You're not going to be lost. You're not just going to say, oh, counter hit. I should be looking for those, I guess. Does that do anything differently? It's very obvious. It's very obvious in Street Fighter 5. So just follow the tells. Follow the tells. I know the game is kind of lacking on other content, but just follow. Follow what it's trying to tell you. That's my advice. Oh, and hit your buttons really loudly. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Actually, I was playing earlier today before I fell asleep.
You a job, sure.
Listen. You gotta hit your buttons loud, especially if you play Fireball characters, because you need to slap that button as hard as you can when you hit the Hadoken. So that way, you're starting to train this dude. He thinks he's slick because he hears you. And then you slap
and then
the
you
same
press
motion.
the button that's not set to anything.
Yeah, you press
That's why Alex Valle is going to do well in this game.
You do that big loud button and you slap the button and light kick comes out and no Hadoken, but the dude's been listening to you and he's like, I know to punish this on sound. And he goes to do it and you just blow him up for it. You get your bang. Hit your buttons loud. Hit your buttons really loud.
No.
That's all I've got to say. That's my.
You can hit them loud, just don't hit them hard and don't into your hands.
You don't need to. They're soundwell buttons. Kind of on the ergonomics end, I do want to mention for anyone who's looking to get an arcade stick and get into it. I have been asked this before by newer players, which is how do you hold the arcade stick? The answer is whichever way is comfortable, and you get the moves when you try and do them. That's the only answer. If your hand is comfortable and you do a move and it comes out, ta-da, you got it.
All right, excellent. Thank you all for those closing pieces of advice. Those of you watching, make sure you follow all of us here. Suaixtix, BG Callisto, KP Kinderparty, Lurkaderp, and of course I am ThatPhageGuy. We are going to be tossing the stream over. We'll be hosting Callisto's stream, where he and KP are gonna play a few friendlies for you. Hopefully you can spot out a few of the things that we brought up on the show today. But just to get the salt flowing before we head over there, I did want to mention, first of all, Callisto, I've chatted a few times with Kinderparty about sort of your history in Street Fighter and you being well known for playing Sakura, and he mentioned that you're actually you're better known for cosplaying Sakura than actually winning with her.
Now,
and I should mention that this came right before I found out that the two of them played a recent set of friendlies, and KP actually won that 5-1. And so those of us here actually prepared a little present for you. It's popping up on stream now. KP, I'll send this to you so that you can use this. But it reads: Callisto, great streamer, avid competitor. The lack of cosplay held him back. Buddied by KP 5-1.
Oh my god!
So now that the salt has been fully engaged and is flowing through your veins, Callisto, may you use its power to gain some revenge.
Now, I will say that this did launch a pretty fantastic cosplay career, and I am pretty intent on. Now, this is an event that KP also attended, YumaCon Falls Halloween Weekend in Detroit. I do not dress up for Halloween historically. So I decided that I will not only dress up for Halloween, but it's an anime convention, so I'll dress up as my main character. I'm going to try to continue this tradition this year.
Oh, no.
I am not expecting to change my main character from Armika.
Oh, no.
So, now KP
I'm going to beat you so badly, you need to pick mains. You need to switch mains.
KP can probably corroborate that I'm doing pretty all right in the backseat. So,
you got the junk to back it up.
The real question here is, so KP, you would very much like him to switch mains, so you don't have to see that, right?
Yeah.
But I understand that Armika actually has a companion in the game, right? She's got like the tag teammate. So it seems to me we could potentially place a wager here, where we have a best of 5. Callisto, in the event that KP wins, you have to choose another main before this convention. KP, in the event that you go down to the power of Callisto's salt, you are his tag team partner at the event.
Oh, wow. Now, I have another main, so I'm ready to fulfill my end of that bet.
Guaranteed. I will gladly be. I will wear a catsuit for you, man.
It's official, guys.
All
it's
right,
official.
So this just got infinitely more interesting.
Perfect.
Make sure you guys go and tweet that out. Callisto, would you like us to host you, or are you just going to toss the stream up here on Skype and you want me to maximize it?
You know what? If you wanna just leave it like that, I'll just change my video to the stream itself, and we continue as we're going.
All right.
You want to play first to 5? What are we playing?
Yeah, first to 5 works.
Okay.
All right.
And this is good. We can talk about the match as we're doing. So you're on PC?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start a lobby then.
Oh,
Right,
God.
so,
I can't believe I'm tweeting this out. I'm just putting so much pressure on myself.
Suri and Lurka, if
Good.
you guys, or if you ladies have things to do, by all means, do what you got to do. You're welcome to stick around and help us flame these scrubs. But I understand the official portion of the podcast is over. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Stick around if you've got the time. If not, go have a life outside of video games and have a great evening.
And of course, both for myself and KP, I'm going to speak for him here because we can do that. If anyone is less familiar, I'm sure there's Dota fans watching. If you have any questions about Street Fighter or fighting games in general, feel free to pitch them, and we'll answer them the best we can.
Absolutely. I'm ready to give you this ass whooping. Where's the invite at?
I'm getting there.
I'm ready.
Let's not talk about. You want a character lock it to cut down on
Yeah, I'm on review.
time?
I'm good.
Okay.